Thanks for being here. I appreciate you spending a few minutes to watch, but mainly to listen. I can tell you, people who know me might be very surprised to discover I've recorded this video, particularly considering the subject matter. But they will also know I've taken time to do credible research, nothing is made up, and they know me to be reasonable, practical, and have no self-serving motive. And it won't be that long, so please hang in there with me. The inspiration was a specific YouTube video I was urged to watch, and it resonated with me. I didn't merely stumble upon it, which is why I'm providing the link and copy of the transcript. If you see this, I strongly recommend you take a few minutes to watch it when you're undistracted. And think about it like I did. I was impressed by the speaker and how he delivered his message about something that clearly really bothered him. That inspired me to look into who he is. Impressed with that, I began to dig a bit deeper into the subject matter to answer some of my own questions. And I'll share some of what I learned here. The man speaking in the video was James Talarico. He was elected to the Texas House of Representatives at age 28. Even now, at age 35, he's still the youngest member of the Texas legislature. His district represents the northeast portion of Austin and areas within Travis County. He's been effective for his constituents and named one of the best legislators. He didn't grow up with a silver or gold spoon, nor did he earn millions in Silicon Valley or on Wall Street before choosing to serve in government. Many would finish that sentence with the phrase, before he entered politics, but I chose to say serve in government because that's what I believe he's doing and why he sought that path in the first place. His background is modest and honest, and he's really a smart guy. He has a BA in government from University of Texas at Austin and a master's in education policy from Harvard. He began his career maybe a decade ago as a 6th grade middle school English language arts teacher. After spending time as a classroom teacher, he became executive director of a nonprofit focused on bringing technology to low-income classrooms. In that position, I imagine he realized he could help many more people in many more ways as a member of his state's legislature. And at age 28, he saw an opportunity and applied his efforts toward getting elected. He became known as the guy who literally walked from one end of his district to the other to meet and talk with the residents. He says his faith means more to him than anything. And you realize he's not just throwing that out as something to say when you learn that he began pursuing a Master of Divinity in August 2022 at Austin Presbyterian Theological Seminary and expects to be ordained as a minister in 2025. The video, the speech I'm referring to, was a guest sermon Mr. Talarico gave to Sunday churchgoers where he's attended church since he was 2. The church's pastor was away enjoying a sabbatical leave at the time. So what was bothering the Honorable Mr. James Talarico from the great state of Texas? It's the subject of Christian nationalism. Mr. Talarico is a lifelong Christian, and he's bothered, worried, and upset about the rise of a movement called Christian nationalism in the U.S. In his sermon, he talks about what it is and isn't. But it's important that people not confuse Christian nationalism with Christianity as a religion. Christianity is a monotheistic religion based on the life and teachings of Jesus Christ. It happens to be the world's largest and most widespread religion. Fundamentally, Christians believe that Jesus Christ is the Son of God, whose coming as the Messiah was prophesied in the Hebrew Bible, the Old Testament, and chronicled in the New Testament. Jesus' life and teachings were all about love, peace, sharing, forgiveness, liberating the poor, and healing the sick. It was about humanity and being a good citizen and neighbor, welcoming diversity and variety, showing kindness to others, no matter what they look like or where they came from. It was about inclusivity, tolerance, helping or saving others, and transforming the world. Our country will be headed down a dark, dangerous path if we allow Christian nationalism to take hold in the U.S. political leadership that supports and encourages it. And all of that it influences, endangers, if not destroys, democracy. It is a form of religious nationalism that is affiliated with Christianity. It primarily focuses on the internal politics of society, such as legislating civil and criminal laws that reflect its adherents' views of Christianity and the role of religion in political and social life. It seeks to establish an exclusivist version of Christianity as the dominant moral and cultural order. Christian nationalists in the United States advocate a fusion of Christian identity and cultural conservatism with American civic belonging. It's been noted to overlap with Christian fundamentalism, white supremacy, the Seven Mountain Mandate movement, and dominionism. Most researchers have described Christian nationalism as authoritarian and boundary enforcing. It has also been linked to prejudice towards minority groups. Christian nationalism has been loosely defined as a belief that celebrates and privileges the sacred history, liberty, and rightful rule of white conservatives. Studies have associated it with xenophobia, homophobia, misogyny, political tolerance of racists, opposition to interracial unions, support for gun rights, pronatalism, and restricting the civil rights of those who fail to conform to traditional ideals of whiteness, citizenship, and Protestantism. The Christian nationalist belief system includes elements of patriarchy, white supremacy, nativism, and heteronormativity. American Christian nationalism is based on a worldview that America is superior to other countries, and that such superiority is divinely established. It posits that only Christians are true Americans. Adherence to Christian nationalism has been associated with high levels of distrust of science, especially parts that are perceived as challenging biblical authority. During the COVID-19 pandemic, Christian nationalists frequently opposed lockdowns, restrictions on social gatherings, and mask wearing. In a 2020 study, it was found that even after accounting for socio-demographic, religious, and political characteristics, Christian nationalism was a leading predictor that individuals prioritize the economy and deprioritize the vulnerable. Every significant Christian denomination, including Catholicism, Episcopal, United Methodist, Christian Church or Disciples for Christ, Lutheran, Baptist, and Presbyterian, signed on to a jointly prepared official statement to collectively denounce and make clear their grave concerns about Christian or religious nationalism, particularly in the U.S. I'd like to read what they publish now, titled Christians Against Christian Nationalism Statement. And it reads, as Christians, our faith teaches us everyone is created in God's image and commands us to love one another. As Americans, we value our system of government and the good that can be accomplished in our constitutional democracy. Today, we are concerned about a persistent threat to both our religious communities and our democracy, Christian nationalism. Christian nationalism seeks to merge Christian and American identities, distorting both the Christian faith and America's constitutional democracy. Christian nationalism demands Christianity be privileged by the state and implies that to be a good American, one must be Christian. It often overlaps with and provides cover for white supremacy and racial subjugation. We reject this damaging political ideology and invite our Christian brothers and sisters to join us in opposing this threat to our faith and to our nation. As Christians, we are bound to Christ not by citizenship, but by faith. We believe that the people are of all faiths, and none have the right and responsibility to engage constructively in the public square. Patriotism does not require us to minimize our religious convictions. One's religious affiliation or lack thereof should be irrelevant to one's standing in the civic community. Government should not prefer one religion over another or religion over no religion. Religious instruction is best left to our houses of worship, other religious institutions, and families. America's historic commitment to religious pluralism enables faith communities to live in civic harmony with one another without sacrificing our theological convictions. Conflating religious authority with political authority is idolatrous and often leads to oppression of minority and other marginalized groups, as well as the spiritual impoverishment of religion. We must stand up to and speak out against Christian nationalism, especially when it inspires acts of violence and intimidation, including vandalism, bomb threats, arson, hate crimes, and attacks on houses of worship against religious communities at home and abroad. Whether we worship at church, mosque, synagogue, or temple, America has no second-class faiths. All are equal under the U.S. Constitution. As Christians, we must speak in one voice, condemning Christian nationalism as a distortion of the gospel of Jesus and a threat to American democracy. Well, that's their statement, and it's quite clear, but it seems worth examining. If you're a Christian, regardless of denomination, and you believe it's important to try at least to live life to honor the true principles of your religion, and the official world leadership of every major Christian denomination plainly states and explains why they believe it's important for everyone, regardless of personal faith or beliefs, to reject Christian nationalism and speak out about it, shouldn't Christians at minimum get on board with that? And if you won't, well, that just signals the very types of ulterior motives that are the basis for their concerns. According to research and polling conducted by Pew Research Center, only 13% of Americans support declaring Christianity as the national religion, and only 5% of U.S. adults say they have a favorable view of Christian nationalism. Thus, clearly, the tide of opposition extends far beyond major Christian denominations. Of course, there is a passive, non-confrontational alternative for fervent members of the 5%, who are attempting to force their views upon the 95% who oppose them. They could move to these countries where the tides seem to be in their favor: Brazil, Finland, Ghana, Hungary, Russia, Scotland, or South Africa. In reading and learning about Christian nationalism, I couldn't help but recognize parallels with Puritanism. So, I read more about Puritanism and its history, and I have to say, there are parallels, but here's another great force in the tides. Puritanism largely dissolved by the 1700s, and in the modern era, let's face it, Puritanism is a hard sell. Can you even imagine the reactions if the real Puritans from the colonial era really took the full tour to see what really goes on these days? That would be something to see. Which brought something else to mind. I've been seeing these energetic commercials lately, and she keeps reassuring the large crowds gathered that, quote, "we are not going back." And I think the 5%ers should listen, because after she says it, there are a lot of people shouting it back to her. Thank you very much.